let's open your book to start this science class in the topic natural selection. That is the topic that we are going to learn today. Natural selection is on the page 42 and 43. Page 42 and page 43, we have natural selection. That is the page that we are going to learn today. Okay, so what is natural selection? I'm going to start explaining something important. Okay, today we're going to start talking about some important scientists that made experiments about natural selection. José Alejandro, you have any question?
In the natural selection, it can be black, white, and how do I say delgado?
Thin,
Thin, fat, of and blue hair and black hair.
okay.
It can be
This is
all the
about people. Yes, this is about people, right? So today we're going to learn how is the natural selection is about people, as José Alejandro mentioned, that it's right, and
okay.
animals, how is studying animals. So excellent, thank you for your comment, José Alejandro. Okay, Alan, you have any question? Alan?
What page?
Page 42 and page 43. In that page. Okay, guys, so let's start. Some ancient times, let's start, follow the reading with me. Since ancient times, organisms diversity had tried to be explained how the animals are different. So today, the scientists will accept that all the organisms that are in the world come from the same cell. So remember, when we talk about the cell, we talk about that all animals have the same cell, that it is the animal cell. And that cell is related with us, with humans. In the 19th century, many scientists began to consider that the living beings, animals, plants, and humans were the product of evolution. Remember, in the last class, we talked about the evolution of the horse. We saw a video about how the horse have been evolutionated through the time, how their body changed by the environmental changes. So they didn't know exactly, those scientists, how to explain the evolutions of the animals in that time. So the English scientists like Charles Darwin, Alfred Wallace developed a theory which explained the process of evolution and called this theory natural selection. The results were based on the following aspects. So we have some aspects that they consider in this theory. We have two aspects. In the same species, there are variations of certain traits. Remember traits, what it means traits? Traits are the characteristics from the animal or the humans or the plants that are passed from one generation to another generation. The environment cannot be withstand all living beings that are born, and many of them die before they are able to reproduce. So that leads the extinctions of some species that are not adapted to the changes in the environment. So what is natural selections, guys? So I'm going to show you pictures about what is natural selections, and I'm going to explain you a little bit more. Okay, so the natural selections, guys, as you can see on the pictures that are, I have three animals on the picture, and these animals can be seen as similar, but they have differences between them. So we have, this is our microorganisms and some fish. So natural selections is when genetic variations, remember the genetic variations happens in the DNA in the cells, are disseminated from generations to generations and are put to test, and only the strongest individuals survive. Only those animals that can be surviving in that new environment. In some environments, the changes benefit some of the animals, but in other cases harms the other animals. Those who survive pass the trait to their descendants. So this is called the adaptation. So if you remember, guys, if you remember the horse, how the horse adapted their body, for example, their legs, their neck, their teeth, how they adapted to the changes, they transmitted in the next generations those traits to their descendants, to their children. So we are going to see now, this guy is Charles Darwin. Charles Darwin was a naturalist, and he made a travel around the world to experiment or to create the theory of natural selection. He traveled to the Galapagos Island, and he was investigating how these animals are different in the Galapagos Islands compared to the other animals in other parts of the world. So he concluded that every animal have the same species. So they were seeing how the animals in one continent react, or how are they, and what are the difference of these animals in the other continents. So they were comparing the animals. So they were to the conclusions that all the animals have a common descent. So all the animals that we know around the world have common ancestor. Every animal that we know comes from a common ancestor, okay? So another experiment that he developed is the finches over here. In the Galapagos Islands, Charles Darwin studied or identified 14 different species of finches. Over here we have pictures of finches, and each species have a particular type of beak. So all of them are familiar. All of them have the common ancestor, and all of them are the same species, but they know we're the same. Why? Because they have different type of beak. Why they develop a different type of beak? Because they adapt it to its eating habits. Depending to what they eat, they have a different beak. Darwin concluded that all the species of finches were descendants of the common ancestor. Let's see, guys, what are the difference between those finches. For example, we have the number one, the woodpecker finches. They feed off larvae in trees and has a thin beak. If you see, it's thin. Why? Because they need to catch the larvae in the trees. We have the insectivorous. It's different, the beak. They have a twister-shaped beak that helps them catch small insects. In this case, they don't eat larvae. They eat insects that are on the ground or even in trees. We have another finches. The ground finch. They have thick beaks adapted to crush the seeds. So for that reason, it is a little bit more bigger, because they need to crush the seeds before eating. For that reason, is that kind of big. We have the other one, the mangrove fish. If you see, it's a little more smaller, and they have a narrow beak, like a narrow, and to feed insects from the bushes. So they eat little insects, for that is a little big. Now we have the vegetarian fish. They have short and slightly curved beak because they eat only leaves, seeds, and fruits. Only that, they don't eat insects. And the other one, the cactus finch. They have long beak to reach the cactus flower. They need to catch only the flower of the cactus to eat them. So these are, guys, the common ancestors of the fish. This is a clear example of the one species can have many variation according to some characteristics. And for example, this finch is going to transmit these characteristics to their generations and so on. And that is the process of evolution. Now, you have any questions about this until this moment, guys? You have any questions, any comment that you want to say to me? Ramon, you have any question?
Yo tengo un pajarito bien chiquito, yo creo que...
Let's work in your books on the page 44. Okay, the page 44, we have complete the statements, okay? So, help me to read, please. Help me to read. Okay, thank you, Hector. Help me to read the first green point.
Human beings have chromosomes.
Chromosome. Who remembers how many chromosomes humans have? Who remembers that? How many chromosomes humans have? Ignacio, do you remember?
44.
Okay, two more?
46.
Yes, 46 chromosomes. Yes, that is how many chromosomes humans have in their DNAs. We have 46 chromosomes. Remember, 23 from mom and 23 from dad. So we have over here 43 chromosomes. Excellent. Okay, Carla, help me to read the second green point.
Are part of chromosomes that carry the necessary information for each of the individual's characteristics.
Excellent. So what are, guys, what is one of the most important part of the chromosome? What is one part of the chromosome? Okay, Sophia, do you know the answer?
Genes.
Genes, excellent. Genes are part of the chromosomes that carry the necessary information for each of the individual characteristics. Thank you. Wait a little bit. I'm going to help you to write. Okay, we have 46 chromosomes. Remember, 23 from mom and 23 from dad. And over here is genes. Okay, genes. Is that the answers? Genes. Okay, another person to help me to read the other one. Okay, Josue, Alejandro.
The characteristic that predominate on others from generation to generation are called.
How are called those characteristics? Do you know? I don't hear you.
I don't know.
It's okay. It's okay. Who knows the characteristics? Who knows that? Okay. Okay. Wait me. Okay. Ignacio, do you know?
The skin color?
Yes, that is a characteristic, but how are they called? How we call those characteristics like skin color, the color of the hair? Do you know? Do you remember?
Traits.
Traits, excellent, traits or dominant characteristics. Traits or dominant characteristics, that is the answers. Traits or dominant characteristics. Dominant characteristics or traits. Traits. Excellent. Okay. Dominant characteristics or traits. Now, in the second exercise, guys, we're going to mark the correct answer with a check and the incorrect answer with a X. So, I need to read, help me to read, okay? I have participants. Okay. Let's see, Edwin, help me to read the first one.
Genetic information is found in DNA.
In the DNA, yes or not?
Yes.
Yes, the genetic information is found in the DNA. So you put a check. Thank you. So you put a check in generic information. So you put a check. Over there is like a check for me. Okay, another person. Let's see, Beta, the number 2.
Person's characteristic of the special of for and the genetical
Inherited. The personal characteristic of a species are found in the generic inherited, yes or not, Beta?
No.
No, okay. Okay, what do you believe, Natalie, yes or not?
Yes.
Why, Natalie? Why the personal characteristics are found in genetic? The answer is yes, but why? What happened in the DNA and what happened with our ancestors? So we transmitted those characteristics, remember, to generations through generations, and that characteristic will be inherited, will be transmitted. Okay, another person for the number 3. Okay, let's listen to Ramon. Yes, help me to read the other one.
In a species, there is only one race.
Okay, in a species, there is only one race, guys. We have only one race for a species? No, right? No. We have different species for different races. So these are the answers for this. Okay. Can I continue, guys? Yes? Okay. Let's move a little bit. Yes, I need to erase that. Okay, now, in this one, guys, we have experiment. The experiment is a little bit difficult to do because you need to cook 40 noodles for students, artificial food coloring, blobs, and bird seeds, and we need a big space. I'm going to explain you a little bit what is about the experiment so you can imagine what is happening. Paint the 20 noodles with green dye, green paint, and the other ones with red, and then place it in an area, in a big area. If then you have to throw bird seed, so the thing that the birds eat in the area where the noodles are, to attack the birds. Leave the noodles in a place for 24 hours, so for a day. Then pick up the noodles that remain on the ground. So what is the objective of this experiment? That the birds come to that area to catch or to eat the noodles. And you have to count how many noodles for each color are left and subtract from the original quantity. So what do you believe that the birds is going to eat more? The green noodles or the red noodles? And why? Okay, I have some students for comments. Carla, what do you believe?
The green seeds.
The green seeds. Why do you believe that, Carla?
Because I think that
So remember that this is about what they're going to eat, and you write your own answer over here. And this is why this procedure is similar to natural selections. Okay, if you finish, guys, remember to raise your thumb finger. Remember, in the next class, we're going to see the other page, the natural selection in humans, and we're going to work in this page 45 in the other class.